Hello and welcome to Kirklees Local TV's weekly wind-up. I'm Pastor Napier, your host for today. Each week we aim to review the news and topics and explore them to see how they impact here in our local community. We are not only here to be informative, interesting, amusing, but challenging and very provocative. Well, I'm happy to let you know that we have three fantastic guests today. We've got Pastor Patrick Price, a senior minister for the New Testament Church of God here in Kirklees, and Donna Marie, a PhD student and a community support worker in the Jamaica diaspora. And we've got one of our own staff member here, Callum Knight. And ladies and gentlemen, right across this country, we are here to debate today marriages, the church versus the state. Secondly, domestic abuse or violence, not only female suffering now, but the male are coming through fast and furious in the statistics. And thirdly, young BME are fast becoming more patriotic than many English citizens. A view, and I must say it's a view highlighted by the media. So here to start us off, we're going to ask Pastor Patrick Price, as he represents the clergy when it comes to marriages, the church versus the state. Where are we going today? Can you give us an overview as to where we stand and what the media is saying regarding same-sex marriage and the originality of marriage?
Okay, thank you very much, Bishop Napier. Well, the whole issue of marriage, church versus the state, is an ongoing debate, an ongoing bone of contention in some respects. However, we look at civil partnerships as one aspect, and we also look at the institution of marriage as the other aspect. Where civil partnerships are concerned, that is an act of parliament, that's a civil matter. So of course the church really has no grounds to comment too deeply or influence too deeply on the civil partnerships. But where marriage is concerned, we hold the position of it's a holy institution ordained of God, and so therefore we have tremendous grounds of debate and defense to declare. So that's really where the church stands, that it's an institution based on biblical principles.
Thank you. So before we bring in our other guests, I'd like to just ask on behalf of the public, do you believe that the church will ever reach a point, and we need to make a distinction here, because sometimes the black-led churches take a different stance from other churches. Do you think we will ever embrace in the church the notion of same-sex marriage and same-sex leading a family?
Okay. Well, when we refer to the church, you mentioned black-led churches. The church in this country, the Church of England, has an orthodox position, centre ground of rooting itself on biblical principles. The black-led churches have a similar position. So the tolerance that does exist, it's not been officially recognised by the established church. It is still rooted in canon law that the Church of England and Wales is wholly against and regarded as illegal for same-sex marriage. And that position is mirrored by the black-led churches. So there's no distinction in our theological position.
Lovely, thank you for the clarity. As our only female on the panel today, and I know you're a married woman, Donna Marie, and you're studying hard at Kirklees, Huddersfield University. Do you think that the state should be involved in the decision on marriages within the churches or in the system? Or do you think that it should solely be up to the church to make the decision? What's your view?
First of all, thank you for having me today. It's a privilege to be a part of this forum. Personally, I believe that it has to be a balance, because the church consists of members, And so the pastor, as the head of the church, cannot make that decision by himself. It has to be the decision of the members as well. But also the state has a legal obligation to recognize people's position, whether they like it or not. But whilst preparing, something Pastor Price said, and whilst I was preparing for being a part of this panel, I did a little bit of research on the issue of gay marriage. And something that came up all the time, first of all, we look at equal rights. And I'd like to find out whether equal rights also extend not just to the people who want to, the gays who want to get married, but what about the pastors and the churches and the organizations who actually don't subscribe to it? They too have equal rights. I also read an article published in the BBC on the 26th of March by somebody called Tom Hayden and Lucy Townsend, and there were 5 items that they found. The religious skeptics, so the Church of England and the other church people. Yeah. They also found historical meaning. So people were thinking the laws cannot be changed historically, because historically marriage is between men and women, and that has been coming down from time immemorial. So that is an area that they're thinking we can't change the law because of that. Other people who are gay actually oppose gay marriage. They're thinking, why should we get married? Because there's a high incidence of people don't stay long in the relationships.
Divorce rate.
Yeah. There's also the gray area around civil partnerships, and in terms of the definition, what is a civil partnership as against what is getting married. And finally, they're saying that the law is being rushed. It needs more time to be fleshed out. So while it is hot and it is topical, that's fine, but it needs to be discussed further. So I'm hoping that this forum perhaps can add to that conversation.
Well, the research you have certainly done, and you have raised a point here that we could take for an entire show. Callum, hearing all of this, the church view, and a mini research here, what would you like to say regarding marriages in the church? Should the church embrace the change?
Oh, almost definitely. I agree that it should be a balance between the state and the church, but religion not just in the church, but in just Britain in general, is evolving always, and it is part of our society, so we should respect it as it is. But it should also, if gay marriage is now legal in Britain, it should embrace it. No, I'm not saying it should definitely have it widespread, and there has to be discussions between the state and the church to have a consensus. But I've got many friends who are gay, both women and male, and the introduction of same-sex marriage has benefited them massively. I mean, they're my age, so some of them are nowhere near thinking of getting married.
Okay.
But the possibility for them to do that is massively beneficial.
Well, you've heard it, and we could spend all day here discussing it. But
can I just make one more point?
Yes, you can come in,
Pastor
Pastor
one more point,
Price.
yeah, on there, just to maybe help our thought process. In terms of the church is actually in the caught between a rock and a hard place in one sense, in as far as whilst it tries to embrace and be tolerant and to welcome all parties and all persons, it's essentially rooted in the fundamental discipline of the teachings of Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ teaches on the very same subject of marriage, one man, one woman come together in the holy state of matrimony. The church has no opportunity to go above that. So that is the sort of the boundaries that we're working within. Okay. Although we all may have a social sort of perspective on things, but we are actually, governed by the same.
It's a debate that, as you rightly said, is going to go on and on. It's evolving, and at the end of it, we must remember every single person has what you call human rights. So we've got to hear the caution. Well, the debates are going certainly quite well in the studio here. But what about you, our audience? Will you get in touch with us as we talk to you and you talk back to us today? You can get in touch with us by email on info@kirkleeslocaltv.com or on your search engine on Twitter, Kirklees Local TV. We're taking a short break, but don't switch off. We're coming right back to you. Welcome back to this week's weekly wind-up of Kirklees Local TV. And we are just happy to say we'd have a marvelous discussion on marriages, the church versus the state. And now we are going to be looking at domestic abuse and violence. There was a time when the rate was so one-sided. It's just women sheltered, battered, bruised. And it's still going on, but now it seems as if the women are becoming more defensive. And now a lot of men are reporting domestic abuse. Callum, do you think it's about time the women stand up for themselves, or we should nail it and stop this whole thing of abuse?
I think there's a massive difference between standing up for yourself and you know, beating someone up. You know, I can't. The problem is always going to be a problem. I think it's a social issue that probably doesn't get enough attention compared to problems with alcohol or drugs or whatever. It's definitely a problem. I would say females standing up for themselves is a lot different than females becoming the aggressor.
So recently we're told that in Brazil, England lost out in the first round, and quite a few patriotic footballers were turning on to their wives and beating them because they're taking out their aggression on these wives. Well, we've got our female here representing, and I know it's something that you are too ready to talk about, Donna. Where are we going with this? Are we supposed to be turning the table, or are we still supposed to be educating people? It's wrong, as Callum says, to be beating up on each other.
Perhaps we might need to look from an historical perspective, where men believe that they're always superior than women. I think men will say God made Adam first and then he made woman, yeah? So from that perspective. But to put it together, really, I think it comes down to sometimes to a matter of confidence. As a female woman in a relationship where you are beaten and battered, who can you talk with that you can say, can I tell this person, share my issues with this person without them going and tell the neighborhood or say, yeah? It comes down to confidence. It also comes down to the relationship that you have with your partner. It comes down to society again. I think Callum says it's an issue that is not widely talked about, like alcohol or thing. So perhaps education as well. Yeah, definitely.
It's lovely. Now, we've got a member of the clergy here, and I'm not quite sure if men are reporting their abuse to him, but we would like to hear your overview on the matter of domestic abuse in the home, male or female.
Yes, well, it's interesting that you mentioned the reporting possibilities or difficulties of reporting. Hard to say, hard to quantify how bad the problem is. As the other two speakers mentioned, it is holistically wrong, and you know, it is not the means of expression within a relationship that is acceptable. Let us also appreciate the fact that not only physical abuse, emotional abuse, the abuse of power, and the tables turn. Women against men, men against women. Men may be higher on the statistics list when it comes to physical abuse, but maybe the emotional, maybe the power, female breadwinners, maybe the tables could turn there. In terms of the rate of reporting and how bad the problem is, as I say, it's hard to quantify. Interestingly, I was speaking with a local magistrate who's been serving for the past 17 years, and mentioned to me that for all the cases that do come to court, that do come to be dealt with in the courtroom, that in that one case has had up to about 30 different interventions by the local authority, either the police or various agencies. So what does come to the surface in terms of statistics is only the tip of the iceberg. So it is really hard to quantify how bad the problem is, although it is increasing and is obviously out there.
Great. Well, there was a time when women were able to hide their abuse with mascara and makeup. How are the men going to be able to mask this? They're in a herd. How will they be able to relate to this sort of new dimension of women attacking them? And is it brought on by the empowerment of the women's liberation movement? And I agree with Callum, abuse is abuse, either side. So I would like to hear your final view on it. Is it something that we need more education, or we've got to start very younger as to how we respect either of the sexes? Callum?
I think it needs addressing in the wider community. It needs as much attention as any other social issue, and the fact that we're not even talking about prevention, we're talking about whether it's right for women to do it or not. It needs to be about prevention, and that comes from education.
That's right. Donna Marie?
Agree, education. You've been with your husband 20 years, and 20 years you're accustomed to that. What else do you know? But through education and an appreciation, that could help, change,
Pastorally speaking, Pastor Price.
Yeah, and to maybe just stretch the persons involved. Domestic abuse, yes, you have the partners. Maybe other members of the family could also be involved in there to a certain degree. Education is mentioned, but also the consideration of all parties, male, female, persons within that home, are all connected to professionals, doctors, teachers, employers. We all have a social network and connection. And it could well be that the empowerment, the education of professionals. As a minister, I don't only prepare to deliver, but it's healthy for me to be educated and taught how to be observant to the signs. Not only the physical black and blue bruises, but the head bowed down emotional abuse.
Well, one way or the other from the studio here in your weekly wind-up, abuse, either male or female, is not to be tolerated. And we're hoping that all the parties will hear us. It affects everybody. But we want you to talk back to us. It's a live debate here in the studio. Let us hear from you. You can see it flowing right at the bottom of your screen today. Get in touch with us at info@kirkleeslocaltv.com or search engine on Twitter at Kirklees Local TV. Our final discussion here in the studio today revolves around the matter of British citizens are losing their zest on their homeland, and we've got not only the Asian but other nationality, it seems, are becoming more patriotic than British citizens. Young Muslims and other diasporans seem to be making a greater mark on our community. And from the Mail, it says, British Muslims feel a greater sense of national pride than the average UK citizen, according to a new poll. Donna Marie, do you think it's a good thing that the Muslim nation are becoming more patriotic than original English people?
Definitely, because with the brush that they're painted with in terms of going to be jihadist and so on, I would think that if they do become patriotic, that could be one way of getting them to be more involved. And instead of going off to go fight the wars and so on. Yesterday in the paper I read where two Muslim girls, I think they're 16 and between them both they have 28 GCSEs, and they've gone off to be wives of some jihadists.
Right. Well, Colum, a lot of these youngsters going off are born here, so they carry in their blood a sort of British heritage, but at the same time, they're dual in their responsibility. What would be your take on it as an English person here?
Well, I think first of all, it depends what you're talking about in terms of a Muslim community. Because in my eyes, they're as much a British citizen as the rest of us. Therefore, them being patriotic is fine. You know, they've got as much right to be a patriot of Britain than I have, if they're part of this country. Even if they're not, they might have adopted this country as their home. Therefore, it's all right. It's fine. It shouldn't be a problem. It depends where patriotism becomes radical. That's where the problem lies.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that's just in a Muslim community or an Asian community or a white community. That's just a problem in general, and that's a totally different issue.
Well, you're here in the studio. If you're a citizen of this country, all we can say to you is keep up your citizenship. And one of the role and responsibility of a good citizen is to make sure that we are all safe. Well, that's all we've got time for today. Sadly, we've got to go. May I say a big thank you to Pastor Patrick Price and to Column Knight and to Donna Marie. And this is Pastor Napier saying thank you for viewing and see you next time.